I'm Ty. I'm Jen. I'm Haley.
And this is Mania Manslaughter. All right, little how was your guys' week? What you guys do this week? Or these past 2 weeks? We haven't filmed in 2 weeks. Well, Super Bowl. Oh, the Super Bowl was fun. Love Bad Bunny. So sexy. Jim, what did you do? Popped off my nails. I got my hair cut. It does. It looks so good. It looks so good.
Yeah.
If Caleb keeps the video part in of this, because last time we had to edit it out and peep the haircut, tell her she looks pretty because she does right now. Tell her my hair was down to my butt. It was. Yeah, Caleb was like, I couldn't even tell that she got her haircut. Can you guys feel the cat underneath? Yeah. But it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Let's see. Is there any business? Oh, I was listening to my favorite true crime podcast, Morbid. Shout out Morbid. And I'm like back in their like 2019 episodes because I've listened to all of their episodes up to here. Hello. And I found like a case that one of us should definitely cover eventually. But Sam Little, he recently got caught back in like 2019, but he was charged for 8 murders, admitted and was connected to 93 murders. I haven't looked into it. I just looked into the 93 murders from 1970 to 2005. He got caught in like 2018, 2019 and died in 2020, December 30th of 2020. It's my dad's birthday. Oh, of 2020? Well, December of 2020. Okay, so I don't even want to say controversial before we start, but this is a safe space podcast. So fuck ICE, fuck MAGA. Yep. And this is a very safe space. I don't think that because my brain doesn't work. But fuck ICE. No one is illegal on stolen land. We need to stop killing innocent civilians. We need to treat people with unity and not division. Like everybody else is trying to do. But yeah, I just figured I thought I should say that before, just in case I get the wrong idea. Yeah, just in case anybody was confused. Look, now you probably can't be, but it's very important to use your resources that you can to speak up about the injustice that's going on in the United States right now. And if we're going to have a platform, we're going to use it for good. We're going to use it correctly. Thank you. All right. A few trigger warnings for my episode today. All of them. There's murder, essay of underage individuals, and some gory violence. Okay. So on our episode this week, I'm going to be talking about 2 men who were known criminals individual for petty crimes, but then went on to murder victims together as a duo. Their murder spree only lasted around 5 months, but in that time, they did a crazy amount. But first, I'm going to give you a little history on each of their backgrounds and their petty crimes that led to them joining and becoming known later as the Toolbox Killers. I swore I would never cover this case because it is so that's why I said I had to leave little stuff out because like there is audio tapes of some of their stuff if you want to look more into depth into like the gore and the details of it, but we can probably put them on the Patreon. Yeah, just this video would be taken down and I left it enough that you get an idea of how fucked up it is. Subscribe to the Patreon if you want to see. Okay, so Lawrence Bittaker was born September 27th, 1940 in Pittsburgh, PA, but the family was like, yo, your mom's not ready to have a baby. So they made her give him up for adoption to his great aunt and uncle. That way he would still be in the family, but not under her direct care. There's not really anything that I could find to back up why they thought his mom wasn't fit or like if she was too young or what. I don't know, but basically, yeah, gave to the aunt. His first known crime was at 12. He robbed an old man in his neighborhood and accidentally caught the man's curtains on fire. Like he was trying to enter and the man had a candle and a curtain got stuck in the fire. So he dipped and left the old man in the fire to die. I couldn't find if the man did die or got out. He was never charged with anything related to it. His family just knew that it was him. I don't know if he was ever, like, officially caught for it. And it was in the 50s, so there's not a lot of record on it. But, yeah. Shows that he was definitely just a sociopath.
Oh, that's from the start.
His
He ended
family
at the age of 12.
Yeah.
He started young. Yeah.
And clearly didn't care about human life.
No, not at all.
His family moved around a lot due to either the aunt or the uncle having a job in aviation. There's not really a lot on where all they lived, just that they never really settled anywhere for more than a few years. He had an extremely high IQ and dropped out of high school due to thinking he didn't need it. He was just like, I'm bored, I'm too smart for this.
I mean, in all honesty, I learned in high school that North was always in front of me. So
The American system should be.
yeah, that gives the idea of our.
He had a few petty records, like petty crimes on his record before dropping out of high school, but when he dropped out was really when his record took off. Including a high-speed chase, a carjacking, and a hit and run all in one incident.
Right the photo.
Yeah. He was sentenced to juvenile detention until he turned 18. But then after that, between the ages of 18 and 24, he basically kept going in and out of California state prisons. There's not a ton of details on all of those little stints where he was just like in and out awaiting court dates. But for the few big ones, he never served his full sentences. It always got paroled early. An example of that is twice he got 15 years, like charged with 15 years on two different occasions. Both times he only ended up serving 2 to 3 years, which really just gave him like the confidence to be like, the system, I'm going to keep getting out. But at the end of his little crime stint when he was released for the hit and run in 1974, he tried to steal a steak from a local supermarket, stabbed the worker who tried to be like, yo, why are you stealing a steak? The worker did survive, but obviously he was arrested because that had him sentenced to the California Men's Colony. California Men's Colony in 1976, which is where he met Roy Norris, our little duo. Okay. Roy Norris was born February 5th, 1948. He made reports that his parents were distant on drugs and he was consistently in and out of abusive foster homes. But that has since been disputed. And once he was in prison, he actually was like, oh no, my family was not pieces of shit at all. I just made those claims. He made those claims while he was awaiting trials for his petty crimes just to make it seem like it made more sense as to why he was the way he was, to blame it on foster care. But it's actually proven that he had a very happy home. And he was just saying that shit.
Okay.
Okay. At 16 was when his crime really took off for Roy. He made a family member uncomfortable when he was at their home by using sexually explicit language towards them and advances towards it. It's presumed to be an aunt, but it's just known to be an older relative. Nobody really knows if it was like an aunt, a cousin, what. Obviously, the family told his father about these behaviors. So instead of dealing with the awkward conversation with his dad, he stole his dad's car and drove it into the Rocky Mountains. Timothy killed himself. That's one does, right? That's what you do. That's what you do when your dad says, hey, are you trying to fuck your aunt? And you say, yeah, actually, I'll be right back. So I'm like, yeah. That was his first charge was his dad reported the car stolen. There's not a lot of details on if he went to jail for that. It's presumed that his dad probably dropped the charges once they found him, and he was hospitalized for the attempted suicide of it all. So then in 1965, he also dropped out of high school and joined the Navy. He was sent to Vietnam. This part, fair warning. He was sent to Vietnam and was then kicked out because he was committing violent rapes on the Vietnamese women.
Hey, my God.
Yeah. But so then he was kicked out and sent home. That was in 1965 that he joined. He did around 4 years of a full term and was kicked out at the end of his term when they came back from Vietnam for those rapes. In 1969, after returning home, he was charged with another attempted after trying to snatch a woman from her car. He didn't get to go through with his crime, luckily. Lucky her. But 3 months later, he said, well, let's try again. He broke into a woman's house, her. And then a few months after that, he attacked another woman on the street, assaulted her, hit her over the head with a rock. Luckily, she survived, and he was charged with assault with a deadly weapon. But he was sent to a mental institution because at the time in the 60s,
Yeah.
sex issues and were considered like he had a sexual mental illness. So he was just sent to a mental institution and was released in 1975. I just saw the Asher. That freaked me out. I saw someone walk past Taco Bell's here. Well, that scared me. So you said he had a happy home life, right? He told people that it was bad, like when he would go in for these little stints of like a month or two for these rapes. But after he went to jail for like their crimes, like when he was actually in prison, he wrote notes to people being like, "No, I had a happy home. The only thing was my grandma and my mom didn't get along." Did he have like some kind of head injury or anything, or was he just born really fucked up? Yeah, it's okay, fucked up. And it was most of like, okay, Bittaker, the first guy, yeah, his crimes were robbery, like violence. None of his were really sexual in nature at all.
Yeah.
Roy's were only sexual in nature. Oh, after that assault where he hit the lady in the head with the rock and was sent to the mental institution, he was released from the institution in 1975, but 3 months later, proving that he clearly was going to repeat again and didn't just need mental help, he needed to be in prison.
Right.
He raped a woman again.
Oh my God.
And was caught for it, which is when he was sentenced to the California men's colony and met Bittaker, and that brings us to their crimes together.
Okay.
A very important part of it is to note that Bittaker's crimes were all just violence and robbing and carjacking, and Roy's were all sexual in nature. That's gonna matter.
Yeah. I wish it didn't, but I know this case is so. It's bad. Oh. Okay.
They met in the prison in 1977. Bittaker was 37 at the time, and Roy was 29. They would discuss their crimes together and how similar their past history was of meeting psychiatrists, multiple jail stints. They compared their crimes. They felt they had a lot in common and had similar dark fantasies when it related to the violence. But Norris told Bittaker about his being more about sex and did tell Bittaker that the fear in the woman's eyes is what made him enjoy the essay of women. I don't like that. But Bittaker, since his crimes weren't sexual in nature, he said that he felt if he ever did anything like that to a woman, he would have to kill her after due to not wanting witnesses. Norris didn't want to kill them. He liked the fear. He liked the afterthought of like them living in fear.
Also, he was into it. It was like a game.
Bittaker was like, "Oh, if I ever rape a woman, I'd have to kill her," which honestly seems more graceful in this scenario. I would rather die. But this basically led to them being like, "Okay, so then let's do it together. You can get to be violent and kill them, and I get to rape them."
Oh, right. Perfect duo.
Yeah. So they're actually insane. Sorry. They had many conversations in prison about meeting up when they were released to help each other each get these fantasies off and commit these sort of crimes together. They went as far as to make a goal and a written plan that they wanted to assault and kill one girl from every age 13 to 19.
Ew.
Ew. So they intended to kill 6 girls, one 13-year-old, one 14-year-old, and so. In 1978, Bittaker was released after a year of them conversing about this. Yeah. He was living in a motel and he got a job. He started donating money to the Salvation Army in their town. He would give food to the homeless around their neighborhood, which made people kind of trust him in the area. They didn't know his history. They didn't know all of his past crimes. He really like got a good reputation in the area for being a safe place. But it was all a ploy to get people to feel comfortable around him so the teens in the area would come around.
Yep.
So he started after he had a good repertoire with their families and in the area. He started standing outside of a local gas station, and when local teens would come, he'd be like, "Yeah, I'll buy you beer, I'll buy you weed." And then he would store the beer and the weed in his motel so they wouldn't get caught for their families, and that way the teens would be comfortable hanging out with him. He didn't It's not known if he ever assaulted or hurt any of these teenagers while he was living in this motel alone, but it is thought that it was definitely a ploy that when Norris got released, all of these teenagers would already be comfortable around him. That way they wouldn't have to really try hard to get victims. And then about a year, he did that for about a year of living a normal life in a motel. He didn't have any criminal record during that year. He wasn't caught for anything. People really thought like he had turned his life around. But then in 1979, Roy was released. Within 3 months of that, he went to visit his father after being in prison. And on the way back from Colorado to California, there was a woman on the side of the road with a flat tire. He pulled over and hit her.
Right.
And then he basically was just like, yeah, I missed. Let me call up Bittaker. He missed and was like, let me call up Bittaker and see like how he's doing after the release and see if he wants to follow through with like all of the things that we had planned to do while we were in prison.
Right.
As you do.
Right.
They met up the following month of his release in February 1979. While Bittaker was getting his motel and everything and was like getting his life together, he had bought in a van. It's exactly how you're imagining type van. And Norris was really happy about that when they met up because the van had a sliding door and no back windows. So they decided it would be used purely for the purpose of using it to snatch the young women because they could use the sliding glass door or the sliding door to do it quickly. And yeah, they called it Murder Mac. They named, oh my God, ew. Then trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. This part is very terrible. They then bought a toolbox and filled it with tape, an ice pick, rope, knives, pliers, a tape recorder, a camera, a cooler full of beverages that they thought would entice teenagers. Oh, me. She's just gonna have to go to voicemail. Yeah. Sorry, Queen. They did install a bed into the back of the van as well. They fully set it up as a murder, like on the go situation. But that's what led to them being called the Toolbox Killers was because they had that pre-planted box of all the tools. They did go as far as to make it soundproof. They rigged it to have a fake oil spill if they ever got pulled over. So they could pull it and the oil would dump out of it. So they could just be like, oh, we're pulled over for this or that. That's so premeditated. Yeah. And when they were caught, there was signs that they were actively trying to rig it to explode. Okay. If they were about to be caught, all the evidence in the back and the tools and everything would go up in flames. California's known to have wildfires, and in many of like the desert in California, there's fire roads that are strictly for fire access. Yeah. For that. Well, Bittaker knew where the access to one of those roads were, and he cut the locks on them, replaced them with locks of theirs. That way, it wouldn't look like somebody had busted into it, but then they had the keys to the locks and they could use those limit access roads to commit these crimes, hide bodies. Yeah. So, just like really, really premeditated. Yeah. And the fire roads led to cliffs and a lake. Like, it was a full area where they could hide bodies, throw stuff away. It was quiet. Yum. Yeah. And then they said, let's start. They did all of this. They said, okay, you have a place. Like, it's time to go start taking our any questions before we get to the victims. No. I don't think I have a question about the ice pick. Or if they make lobotomies. Or be lobotomizing. That is one of the ones that I put some of the details into just because it's so like out there for a criminal to do. Like it goes so much farther than just assault and murder to use an ice pick. But interesting choice. Yeah. So a few days after they fully like had it soundproofed and everything, they snatched their first victim, Lucinda Lynn Schaefer, in 1979. She was 16 and was walking home from church. They offered her a ride in the van, so she clearly said no. Right. Because it couldn't have been more obvious that they were scary. So they drove ahead, and one of them stood in the sliding door, snatched her while they stayed moving. She was obviously crying and upset, so they drove straight to the fire access roads just in case the soundproofing hadn't worked. There's not a ton of details on her of what they did to her, but it is known that they would take turns. So, like, while Norris was assaulting her, Bittaker would take a walk. Like, they weren't doing it at the same time. They would take their turn.
Well, they're too fucking pussy and they couldn't watch each other harness women. Like, ew.
And also, that does play into when they were sentencing them of the, like, blame play that they tried to do with each other of, like, well, he did this part, yeah, I did that part. So, it's also suspected that it was to just cover their own asses if they ever got caught, to be like, well, I don't know what he did. I don't know what he was doing. So, Norris would assault them sexually. Bittaker would take a walk, and then they would switch. Bittaker didn't do as much of the essaying. He was more into, like, torture and hurting them for a decent amount of time up until he killed them. Like, it was not a quick process. But like I said, not for the first victim, there's not a ton of details directly on what they did to her. But after they were done assaulting her and killing her, they tossed her into one of the canyons past the fire roads. Like they had plans. 2 weeks later, they wasted no time. All of their crimes were back to back within these 5 years. 2 weeks later, they abducted Andrea Joy Hall in a very similar fashion. They drove her back to the San Gabriel Mountains on the fire roads and repeated the same horrible events. But this time, Bittaker made her take photos.
No.
Like Polaroids, naked, crying, like, yes, just terrible. Oh, pause, back to Lucinda for a second, the first victim. They did say after getting caught that which this just shows more like how much they lacked empathy and felt bad for their actions. They said that she was their first victim and helped give them confidence because she was so accepting and didn't cry or fight as much as they thought they would. So they just assumed she knew what her fate was. And it was really easy at how she just accepted it.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, what do you do in that situation? Like, she's 16 and afraid. And she probably thought if she worked with them and didn't fight, she had a better chance.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Because they would tell the girls, like, part of Bittaker's, like, with them in the torment, to be like, oh, like, I won't kill you, do this and I won't. And then obviously he intended to kill them. But 2 weeks later, they went on and abducted Andrea Joy Hall. Similar fashion, she was walking. They snatched her through the car door, went straight back to the San Gabriel Mountains on the fire roads, repeated the same horrible events of taking turns. But like I said, they took photos of her this time. They're like, they definitely told her to, like, oh, take a picture looking scared. Now cry. Now, like, they would give her these prompts for the pictures that they specifically wanted after the fact as, like, trophies. Yeah. And then they killed her with the ice pick by stabbing it through one ear into her brain, removing it and stabbing it into the other ear into her brain where they left it, and it was found. They like pulled it out, so then she just had a straight hole through both sides, and then they washed it off and kept the ice pick for more victim. I'll give everyone a moment of silence to that. Sorry. And it just proves how evil they are because it definitely killed her when it went in through the first ear. Oh, yeah. But real, he liked the gore of it, so he removed it, stabbed it through the other, removed it again. It reminds me of Scream, like that one Scream. I mean, like, not anywhere near the same, but that, like, one Scream scene where this, like, girl hears something in the bathroom stall, and then she's, like, puts her ear, and then Scream stabs the knife in her ear. Ugh. Which, like, there's not on a lot of the victims, there's not direct details on, like, what forms were used to kill them because they were tortured. Like, it was hard to decipher a clear cause of death.
Yeah.
But Andrea, they admitted to this, and it's just such an insane way and shows, like, they weren't just trying to kill her to not have a victim. They enjoyed, like, the actual torment of the killing.
Right.
I like that.
No, me neither.
A few months later, in September of 1979, they picked up 2 girls, 15-year-old Jackie Gillum and 13-year-old Jacqueline Lamb. This time, one of them, it's not known which girl, the 15-year-old or the 13-year-old, but one of them did get out of the van and run while they were tying up the other one. And there was a tennis court out in the country before the fire roads, and tennis players did reportedly see them, but the men claimed that she was just a friend having a bad acid trip, so none of the tennis players called the authorities. She was the 70s. Right. The 70s were a fucking wild time. Yeah, so they didn't really think they were like, "Okay, they're doing acid together in a van." Like, that wasn't so out of the norm, they didn't really look into it. You think about that now, doing acid in a van? Terrifying. Okay, yeah, no. Which actually me and Jack do know a kid that his friends gave him acid and claimed that they were gonna do it too. They didn't. They locked him into a trailer and started banging on the window so he was hearing voices. Once he started freaking out, they all panicked and called 911, and when the cop opened the door, he hit the cop in the head with a hammer because he thought people were out to get him, and his family had to move to avoid charges.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Your lord is insane.
Stuff. But yeah, so nobody called the police. Like, they were just like, "Oh, bad acid trip." Even though, like, it's hard to believe that the tennis players didn't realize that these were 2 men in their 30s and these girls were 15 and 13.
Right.
There had to have been a noticeable, like, these are children.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say from what distance the tennis players were, like, and there wasn't contact. Like, the girl didn't make it to them.
Yeah.
So, um, but they kept them captive for 2 days, unlike the first 2 victims, which were dead within a few hours of the event.
I'd rather be dead within a few hours.
They claimed that they weren't attracted to the 13-year-old Jacqueline Lamp, not because of her age, she didn't do it for them, which is really fucked up. But they did not assault her, but they did force her to witness the assaults on Jackie Gillum. So they took photos, and this time they took audio tapes of what they were doing, just like they had done with Andrea. And they went on to torture both of them, including, it doesn't say which girl in any of the stories, but one of their nipples were removed with pliers.
I'm not laughing at this.
How do you, with straight pliers, that was it? That was the only tool?
No.
And then, once again, their bodies were found after all of this, but it was hard to identify the cause of death because they had been beaten, they had been hit with hammers.
Yeah.
Parts of them had been removed with the pliers. But about a week later, which is where their story starts to crumble, there was Robin Robeck. Shout out Robin. They snatched her off the sidewalk, assaulted her, but she ran before they could tie her up after the. And she did report them, but she couldn't pick them out in a lineup. So they were like, well, there's not a ton that they could do. But obviously, they didn't know what conversation she had with the police. So they were like, we might have finally been caught, or she fled. So they moved from the motel into an apartment to like try to change locations, try to be like, because where they had snatched her off the sidewalk was close to his motel. But that didn't stop them entirely. And I just said, we'll move into an apartment and keep doing. Of course. She unfortunately, like I said, couldn't name them in a lineup, so it never really went that much farther. Yeah, police until later. October 1979, which if you recall, the 2 girls, Jacqueline and Jackie, was in September. So they did those 2, Robin, and now this next victim, all within like a month long.
Oh, yay, great.
So October 1979 was when they took their last confirmed victim, Shirley Ledford. She was only 16 and actually knew Bittaker because he would come into the McDonald's that she worked at often, and she was one of the teens that he had kind of set up a reputation with prior to this. She was walking home, like from a Halloween party, and willingly accepted a ride from them because she knew him and didn't really think anything of it. They recorded them attacking her on the audio tape like the other girls, but her tape specifically is noted to be the worst because Bittaker would force her to scream and beg for her life and told her that you can't get that kind of real fear with even actors, so he wanted to show people what a real scream sounded like. He later told the courts when they said that they would play these for the judge and for the jury that there was no way anyone in the room could get past 1 minute of listening to it and not cry. But instead of throwing her over the side of the cliffs like the previous victims, they were getting bored and they decided to lay her body on someone's front lawn just to see what the media would say about it. Thus, they would handle it. Crazy escalation. That also like kind of covers their track. Like, if anybody was like on their track of like, oh, this is what they keep doing, there's a thought process. This is like totally different. And they wouldn't connect her. They were nervous because she was the first kill after Robin Robeck. So they wanted to see if somebody would make that connection.
Completely changed. They want to,
Yeah. Ugh. A jogger found her body the next morning. She was severely beaten and showed that pliers were used on her genitals. Well, yeah. Just displayed publicly on the front lawn of somebody's house. But however, her body still wasn't the thing that got them caught. So after that happened, Roy Norris ended up another inmate that they had known. His name isn't listed because he ended up helping, but another inmate that was in there with them in the California colony prison got out, and Roy and him met up. Roy ended up thinking, oh, you're another inmate. You're going to be okay with this. But that man wasn't in prison for the same sort of violent crimes as him and Bittaker. So he bragged to him, going into full detail, even about his crimes before his prison sentence, of like his rapes when he was 16. Like, told this man everything. Luckily, the ex-inmate was like, oh, yeah, I'm a criminal, but like, what the So he called his attorney and was like, "Hey, how should I go about reporting this that won't mess with my parole? Like, I didn't do anything with them. I don't want to get myself in trouble, but somebody needs to know that he's saying that he's done this." Luckily, one of the stories Norris told this man was about Robin, the girl who had escaped, which matched her story and helped the cops start to piece some things together. They then had another lineup to bring in to her to get her to confirm who it was. And she was like, yeah, I do think it's those two men. Because beforehand, they didn't have anybody and she couldn't describe them. So yeah. Now they had like an actual lineup to give her, but she couldn't 100% identify them. But she did point them out. But she just wasn't like positive on her identification, which loses its validity in court since she wasn't 100%. But it did help the police be like, okay, well, if what he's telling you lines up, we have a victim who's claiming the same things. Like, clearly something's going on here.
Right.
They couldn't arrest, like, they didn't have enough proof to arrest Norris because he was the one that she was least confident on identifying. But he got caught selling marijuana out of the back of the van, which violated his parole. So they held him on that. Lawrence, they could arrest for the abduction of Robin because he's the one that she positively identified. So once they were both in jail, police were like, okay, we can only hold them for so long. Like, we really need to see how much they've done and how much we can really charge them with. So they immediately got warrants for the van, Bittaker's apartment, as much as they could. When searching Bittaker's apartment, they found the Polaroids, they found the audio tapes, and a few necklaces belonging to the young victims. Here's where I said the last confirmed victim. The police ended up recovering over 500 Polaroid images of the victims, as well as other random young girls that the men had taken photos of, including one that had a picture of a girl with two guys assaulting her that wasn't Bittaker and Norris.
Oh, okay.
But it was a very similar scenario.
Okay.
Some of them were just random young girls out in public that it's presumed that they just found attractive and took creepy pictures. At first, Norris denied most of it. Bittaker straight up was just like, yeah, like this, you caught me. But Norris denied it for a long time until they were like, Bittaker has told us everything. Like, you have to say something. And Norris was the right? Yes.
Okay.
So Norris then went on to admit to all the assaults, but claimed he never wanted to kill them, and the murder was all Bittaker's idea, and he never took place with the murder. That's when he would leave the van. But obviously they have audio tapes of this, and that's case. So they were both charged immediately with 5 counts of first-degree murder. However, so like I said, 500 images, okay? 19 of the women that appeared throughout the photographs had later been reported missing, but there was never proof to show that they were attached to them.
And they never admitted it?
No. You're already there, dude. Yeah. So Bittaker agreed to all the ones that they had hard proof of, like Andrea, like all the confirmed victims that I read. He admitted to all those, but the 19 girls that were missing, they never found bodies. They never found any belongings to them. So they couldn't say that they were involved.
They're already there. They're already going to probably spend the rest of their lives in prison. While still to this day,
nobody knows about those 19 women. Like, they're so involved. They're only connected officially to those. Norris tried to lead police to the victims' remains in hopes to get less time and show remorse that he was upset about the murders. he was like, yeah, the was fine, but the murder was where I drew the line. Like, yeah. Where did you find a knife? Just in case. Yeah. So he did try to leave them, but unfortunately, they found all the girls' bodies, including the last one, uh Shirley. She was found with the ice pick still stuck in her brain. They had used the same method, and her body was over the side of the cliff with the thing. The two young girls, the 15 and 13-year-old, they were found drugged with animal markings on them, which was their plan, was that they hoped animals would drag them away from the caves because it's out in the desert. But Lucy and Andrea Hall's bodies weren't found with the others, which it was just presumed that animals got to them or the lake or, At the end, I have a little tidbit about Andrea Hall's bodies, though, because that ended up going farther in once they were in prison.
Right.
But in 1980, they were both formally charged. Bittaker was denied bail, and Roy chose to plead guilty and not go to court if he testified against Bittaker, and that if the courts agreed to take life without parole and the death penalty off the table. So he basically was like, yeah, you guys don't have to sit through a trial. I won't make everybody listen to these audio tapes, but you can't life me and you can't death penalty me. And they accepted it, which they so much on Bittaker that we didn't really need his testify. So you guys are going to be pissed off about this. Norris then was sentenced only 45 to life with the chance to parole in 2010.
A chance to parole is great.
And this was in 1980, so he wouldn't have been crazy old in 2010.
No.
But he went up to be up for parole twice after 2010, but was denied both times and ended up dying in prison at 79 years old. Some natural causes. Fuck you. Bittaker, even though he admitted to everything and had kind of been braggy about it, he went to trial and pled not guilty.
Right, as they
Just to be a... He then made an attempt, obviously didn't get anywhere because they track your mail in and out of prison, but he was caught trying to hire a hitman to kill the surviving girl, Robin, so she couldn't testify against him.
Oh?
But the charge of her was eventually dropped anyway due to the lack of evidence, and they didn't want her to be forced to testify because they already had enough to hold him accountable, and they didn't want to put her in that position or put her at risk. And they didn't know who else he knew on the outside that could maybe hurt her.
Right.
While awaiting trial, after pleading not guilty, he started writing memoirs about the girls and his crimes, just straight up confessing to them while actively still pleading not guilty in the court.
I've never understood that. Why are you going to confess and then plead not guilty? I honestly think it is so sick. I think it's just like a fucked up. I think it's their way of dragging it out on Tatum's email. Everybody would have to listen to the tape.
Exactly.
They would and look at the photographs. It's like anybody who does that, they're into it. It's like they would want people to go through it.
This did lead to, since Andrea Hall's body wasn't found, it did lead to her mom only being able to identify her through the pictures and the audio, which horrifying, can't imagine. But yeah, he wrote those memoirs of his crimes, and in January 1991, he finally went to trial, where Norris did testify against him like he said he would, along with some of the young boys and girls that he used to let smoke and drink in his apartment, and who had claimed, like, yeah, he had been weird. He showed us some weird pictures. Like, he never tried to hurt us, but yeah, like, he was definitely a creep. It's not known if any of his family was still alive or testified about, like, his criminal background as a child and derangement, but that would have helped. The tapes of the crimes were used in the trial, obviously, to prove his guilt. Most of the jurors did leave after about a minute of Shirley's tapes, like he claimed they would, but he smiled while the whole tape played. The jury ended up debating for 3 days.
The fuck? 3 days?
That's a waste. Most of them had to get up and leave during the tape because of how awful they were. While he smiled, you could hear his voice, you could hear Norris's voice, and they just were like, yeah, we still need 3 days.
Y'all see it, right?
But after the 3 days, Bittaker was finally sentenced to death at the end of the trial in February 1981. While he was waiting for death, a girl who had studied serial killers and psychology in college, she actually was like really into this case, found it very interesting, found their backgrounds very interesting. So she asked to meet with him in prison in hopes that he would tell her if they put Andrea and Lucy's body somewhere else, because they never even found their clothes or anything. So the court started to think like maybe they did something totally different with these girls. And they obviously wanted to bring that closure to the family. He agreed to meet with her, and she was like in her early 20s. He became very fond of her, agreed to meet with her many a times, but then later did claim like, oh, we dumped those two off of a different cliff, so maybe they got drugged somewhere else, and gave her a different location. She ended up linking up with Andrea Hall's family and working with them. And if you go online, you can find tapes of her communicating with the mom and grandma of Andrea Hall, like trying to help them.
Yeah.
But she got cops to agree to search the area years later again, the new location that he claimed, and their bodies were still never recovered.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the case. Fuck, man. I'm sorry. Sorry. Oh, yeah. And they still, like, Norris, the whole time he was in prison, stuck with his, like, I just wanted to rip them. I didn't want to kill them. Bittaker was the killer. Like,
That doesn't make you any better.
yeah. And it was also, like, the pictures and tapes was definitely Bittaker's idea. Roy was scared about it and thought that would lead to them getting caught. But Bittaker kind of played off of it of like, well, you said you like their fear. Like, now we have a keepsake. Yeah. And Roy did try to claim at one point that after the first few and after Robin fled, he wanted to stop because he was afraid of getting caught. But Bittaker had gotten so violent and was so excited about the killings that Roy felt threatened by him that if he stopped, Bittaker would murder him. Dude, but yeah, that's so gross and so disgusting and so fucked up. And so the other one's still alive, yeah? Yeah, he was sentenced to death. Yeah. But I think he died of natural causes. Oh, in the 2015s. Okay. About a lot. Yeah, but I couldn't find fully if he actually went to death or died of natural causes. So. But they both, like, Roy died at 79 and Bittaker would have died, like, around his 8. Good riddance. Yeah, you would have died at 39 when you got out of the California cop. That died a long time ago. That's so gross. Like, and the fact that he pled not guilty and made the victim's family go literally confessing it. Yeah. And he knew what the was doing is the thing. Yeah. And bragging about how the jurors wouldn't be able to sit a minute into it. And when they got up to leave, like smiling and laughing, like, oh, told ya. Not GP though. Yeah. But it took them see 3 days. That's so long. I thought in our first case, Therese Waller, it was like 90 minutes. It took them 90 minutes. That's a really long time for that. But 3 days for them to figure, I don't know, it should have taken them like 3 seconds. Yeah. Or should have been like, they go to the chambers and say, kill it. But guilty? Yep. All right, let's go back out. Like, yeah, I understand they have to do it for like certain, like, I mean, it is thought about though that the 3 days was everybody knew he was guilty, obviously thought he was guilty, but the juror was split on like, you know, how some people are just against the death penalty altogether. So they couldn't get a unanimous vote for death penalty. That makes sense. But after 3 days, obviously they decided, yeah, kill him. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm Hercules. Fuck, I know. The Taco Bell's been sitting there staring at me the whole time. All right. Follow us on Instagram and subscribe to the Patreon so you get exclusive episodes and ad-free listening, even though we don't have any sponsors yet. Somebody sponsor us. And I feel the need to apologize for this story. Bye. All right, Taco Bell.